Legends of Origin, Book 3, Creator Species, Chapter 3. In their haste to reach freedom, Tyria must have stopped listening so carefully for signs of other life, particularly to Aachen. She stopped short as an energy beam lanced the air and they saw another Zephylo racing through the trees ahead, heading straight for them with two Ta'aken hot in pursuit. It was too late to hide. The Ta'aken had already spotted them. Crap. The Zephylo made a beeline for them, obviously having seen them too and probably thinking that safety lay in numbers. Liam drew his gun and fired a shot at the lead Ta'aken. The bullet bounced off its bone collar harmlessly. "Run!" Liam yelled. Arthian swept Lenora into his arms and took off behind Tyria, and Liam raised his gun again, this time taking the time to aim properly. His next bullet hit the lead Ta'aken square in its center eye, and it dropped and lay twitching on the ground. The second Ta'aken increased speed, its attention now on Liam. The Zephylo, a male, raced past Liam, not sparing him a fleeting look. Gee, it's a pleasure, Liam thought, vaguely annoyed. He ducked behind a boulder as the Ta'aken drew near, and aimed his weapon again. A hollow click rewarded him. He was out of bullets. Shit! Liam scanned the area for somewhere to hide, but only open ground met his eyes in the immediate vicinity. He took a shuddering breath and dropped the triangular pendants, preparing for hand-to-hand combat. If he was lucky, he might be able to relieve the Ta'aken of its weapon. If not, he'd surely lose the fight. Since the Ta'aken were so well protected by their natural bone armor that a punch was more likely to break Liam's hand than hurt the alien. Heavy footsteps approached, warily now. He moved to the other side, keeping the boulder between him and the enemy. The footfalls went silent. Had the Ta'aken stopped moving, or was it merely being quieter? His question was answered a few moments later when the whine of an energy weapon filled his ears and burning pain speared his wounded shoulder from behind. He dived to the side with a curse, then rose unsteadily to his feet and faced the Ta'aken, trying to ignore the excruciating burning in his shoulder. The Ta'aken leered at him as it raised its weapon again, clearly sure of its victory. It was over. He had failed to rescue Lenora. He could only hope that Arthian would get them back to Tridor. As long as the Ta'aken didn't search his corpse and take the teleportation crystals, the others still had a way off the ship. Liam glared at the Ta'aken. If he was going to die, he wanted to see it coming. To his immense surprise, when the alien fired, the energy beam went over his head as it staggered in apparent astonishment. A large rock rolled to the ground. Arthian stood a short distance behind the Ta'aken, hefting another rock, which he hurled at it. It went down and lay unmoving, bright red blood weeping from the cracks in its skull. Liam clutched his shoulder and grinned at his rescuer. "Much obliged." A pained expression crossed Arthian's face, then vanished as quickly as it had come. "I couldn't let it kill you," he said, his tone apologetic. Liam's grin vanished as he realized the sacrifice the monk had made to save him. Arthian hated killing, and had sworn he'd never kill again. It must be eating him up inside. "You did the right thing," Liam said. "God won't punish you for saving my life." Arthian met his gaze, then stared down at the dead Ta'aken. "I hope you're right." "If I'm wrong, then so is Lenora." Liam paused to let it sink in. Remember, she said, "Yes, yes, that one must always do what feels right," Arthian interrupted, his tone tetchy. "Exactly," Liam said, pretending not to notice the monk's irritation. Where are the others? Right here, Tyria said, coming up behind Arthian. Lenora leant on her for support. Liam almost wished there was an Illinoisan with them, though he wasn't sure if their earth magic could heal her leg on board a spaceship. We brought someone with us, Lenora said. Liam looked at her. It had better not be that Zephylo coward. Lenora reached behind her and tugged the Zephylo coward into view. His name is Ilden, she said. Ilden looked at them, his nervousness obvious. Hi, he said meekly, shuffling his feet. I told him we had a way to escape and we would take him with us, Lenora said. It isn't right to leave him here. If you ask me, Tyria said, he doesn't deserve our help. He's a coward. Liam was shot because of him, and we could have all been killed. Now that isn't right. We need to get out of here, Liam said, retrieving the triangular devices and one of the Ta'akan's energy weapons, noting it had a stun setting as he examined it. He began to walk back towards the perimeter wall. Before I pass out, I'm starting to feel woozy. It's the blood loss, Arthian said, stopping Liam so he could tear off one of his shirt sleeves. Arthian bound the wound as best as he could. Then Liam led the way on. Liam agreed with Tyria. Ilden was a coward who didn't deserve their help. A niggling little voice wouldn't let him argue with Lenora, though. She was right about it being the right thing to do, his conscience reminded him. What if she was, indeed, an angel? What if she told God what a selfish shithead he was? Regardless, there was something about her. Great strength, but also a vulnerability whose nature he couldn't quite place. It made him want to protect her and be nice to her. Thankful, Tyria didn't seem interested in pursuing the issue, and they reached the perimeter wall a while later without further incident. Tyria instructed everyone to stay at least 10 meters from the wall. The explosion would be big. There's just one problem, she said to Liam, who stood beside her at the wall, the triangular devices at their feet. Now what? Liam was sick of problems. After we break them to expose the tritium, someone has to spit on the shards to get them to explode, right? Tyria said. Well, with this much tritium, the explosion's going to be huge, as you know. Liam groaned. In his eagerness to be free, he hadn't considered the obvious. We need to find a way to get it wet on timer, so whoever spits on it has time to get away. He thought for a moment. What about if we crack one just enough so there's a thin crack in it, so it's exposed to air? If one explodes, the others will break and add fuel, making the explosion greater, right? Tyria nodded. Liquid might take a few moments to get in there, right? Tyria nodded again. If we get the crack size just right, what are the chances? Got any better ideas? She sighed. Let's get to it then. Tyria broke 3 pendants before she was happy with the size of the crack. She held it up. This is the one. We'll place this on top of the pile. When it goes, it'll set off the others too. Liam met her gaze. So who's going to do it? I'll have to, Tyria said matter-of-factly. You're injured. I can run faster. Good point. Liam helped her to pile up the pendants, then walked away. Good luck, he said over his shoulder. Tyria watched him until he reached the others, then bent over the pile of pendants. A moment later, she turned to sprint towards them, her speed such that she would have easily outrun Liam even if he wasn't injured. She was halfway to them when a deafening explosion rocked the floor, flinging her onto her face. Liam raced towards Tyria, leaving Arthian to help Lenora to the gaping hole in the wall. When he reached her, he dropped to his knees and turned her onto her back. Her eyes were closed, and, when shaking her didn't rouse her, he checked her pulse. It felt too weak, but he was no expert on alien physiology. Liam slapped her. Tyria shoved him away as she shot up into a sitting position. What in all of creation? Let's go. Liam grabbed her wrist and pulled her up with him. It worked. Arthian, Lenora, and Ilden had almost reached them. Liam was pleased to see the Zephylo helping Arthian to support Lenora. At least he was being useful, though that wouldn't make up for his cowardice as far as Liam was concerned. It just made it a little easier not to voice his dislike. Taria walked with the others while Liam went ahead to make sure the corridor outside was clear. Smoke clogged the air, but, as far as he could tell, no Ta'akan had reached the scene yet. It surprised him that none had teleported there immediately. His stomach lurching and vision dimming, he tried to teleport a short distance down the corridor. Nothing happened. Shitting fuck! Obviously, one had to move some distance from the hunting grounds before the teleportation blocker became ineffective. Liam waited for the others to reach him, then shared the bad news. Tyria grimaced. Nothing's that easy. This way, Liam said, moving down the corridor away from the hunting grounds. The other corridor runs alongside the area we just escaped, so it would be pointless taking it. Each grasped another's shoulder, arm, or shirt, and they followed Liam, who stopped every few paces to attempt to teleport. After a few minutes of this, heavy running footfalls came from ahead, and they ducked into a small storage room. A group of Ta'akan raced past, heading the way Liam and company had just come. They waited for the sound to fade, then slipped out of the storage room and continued, with greater haste than before. Caught up in thoughts of those who might need rescuing on the planet below, Liam didn't notice a Ta'akan ahead, standing silently waiting for them, until it raised its weapon. Startled, he blinked, and found himself standing on the planet he'd just been thinking about, amid people who clearly needed rescuing. Fresh ocean wind fanned Liam's hair and cooled his cheeks, and waves crashed against a nearby shore that wasn't in sight. Liam ducked as an arrow whizzed past his head, seeing Arthian drag Lenora down too. A battle raged all around them. Wooden stilt houses were alight, and screams cut the early morning air as arrows found their marks. Liam clutched the energy weapon he'd taken from the Ta'akan on board the ship, unsure of whom to aim it at. All those who fought were human. In here, Tyria shouted, already halfway through the door of one of the few stone buildings in the village. Liam helped Arthian with Lenora, and they hastened to join Tyria. Liam tried to shut the door, but it wouldn't budge, so they moved away from it and watched the fighting through a window. It didn't surprise Liam to find humans fighting humans. It was the same on Earth, and clearly it was just human nature to pick at differences rather than use them to everyone's advantage. So like our creators. Still, he'd expected them to band together to fight the aliens, at least until the greater threat was gone. A quick glance around showed a single large room that seemed to be used as a school or lecture hall of sorts, judging by the rows of wooden chairs facing a large blackboard. Where are the Ta'akan shuttles? Tyria asked, scanning the distant skies from the window. Somewhere else on the planet, maybe? Arthian said. No. Liam shook his head. They attacked my continent on Earth and Tridor, the two places I'm most likely to be lately. That's a bit too much of a coincidence if they attack a planet in stages. They must have more than one mothership attacking each planet. That's right, Ilden said. They hit the entire planet at once, so no one has a chance to work together against them. A species' strength is often in its numbers, and the Ta'akan know that. A flaming arrow came in through the window, and Arthian stamped it out. So, where are the Ta'akan shuttles? Taria asked again, frowning. It hit Liam that it wasn't dark. Hang on. When they attacked my planet, the mothership hovered so low it blocked our sun. Wouldn't the ship we were just on have done the same? Ilden frowned. Yes, it would. Taria nodded when Liam looked at her for confirmation. Then why can we see the sun rising? Arthian asked, echoing Liam's thoughts. The ship must have left, Taria said. Liam stared at her. Why would it do that? Maybe it has all the people it needs, Lenora suggested. Ilden scratched his chin. It's possible. Or maybe it's still in orbit, Liam said. Two men scuffled outside, their fight bringing them closer to the building's open doorway. The two Zephylo watched them with ill-concealed unease. Liam thought of the wars on the two Earths and the beating the Ta'akan were taking in those wars. He looked at Arthian, who seemed to be thinking the same thing, judging by his panicked expression. Liam turned to the others. Or it's gone to provide backup to the motherships attacking one of our planets. He gestured to Arthian. Why do they need backup? Tyria asked. Lenora smiled. The harvest isn't going so well for them. Tyria and Ilden looked confused. We're kicking their arses, Liam explained. The two Zephylo exchanged glances, eyes wide. Then Tyria asked, Really? You're fighting the Ta'akan and winning? Why do you look so surprised? Liam asked, struggling not to pass out from his shoulder wound. Don't tell me no one's ever fought them and won. A few have tried, Lenora said, but none have succeeded. The Ta'akan have never lost a battle, let alone a war. Well, not against other species of the same making. Of the same making? What do you mean? You will know in time. Liam narrowed his eyes at her. How do you know so much? It's starting to sound like you're from their galaxy. I'm from every galaxy, Lenora said. Liam felt a headache coming on. How is that possible? You surely can't have been born in more than one place. Lenora smiled again. I was born in this galaxy, but my place is in all galaxies. More riddles, Liam groaned. What does that even mean? The taller of the two men scuffling outside shoved the other through the doorway, then raised his leg to kick him. He froze as he spotted the group, his eyes widening when his gaze fell on the two Zephylo. Are you also part of the conspiracy to kill us? The man asked, his voice trembling. All these monsters are part of it, the other man shouted, then jumped up and ran outside, only to be felled by a stray arrow. Help! The taller man yelled, turning to flee. Help! Aliens! They're still here! Help! Time to go, Liam said, heading for the door, unsteady on his feet. He stopped to scan the area, then turned left towards the woods. Arthian and Ilden helped Lenora. Liam hoped one of them wouldn't have to carry him, too. If he didn't get some rest and proper bandaging for his wound, it may come to that. Or worse. There they are! Liam looked towards the voice, then increased his speed when the man from the house pointed at them. The villagers with him raised their bows and let off a volley of arrows. Ilden ducked just in time to avoid one in the throat. Run! Liam yelled to the group, firing his energy weapon into the others, which scattered. He was about to go back to help Arthian with Lenora, but Ilden swept her into his arms and raced after Tyria, who sprinted towards the woods. Liam and Arthian raced after the others. The battle sounds faded as they tore through the trees, but sounds of pursuit still came to them. At least some of the villagers thought they were enemies and were determined to kill them, it seemed. Tyria stopped when she came to a small cave entrance. "Let's hide in here," she gasped. "It's too obvious," Liam said. "Over there." He gestured to a cluster of bushes. They'd barely secreted themselves behind the foliage when the villagers came panting up and stopped at the cave entrance. "In here," a voice said. "That's too obvious," another argued. "Let's go." "They must be as tired as we are," the first said. "They'll need to rest." "No, those monsters can endure far more than we can." "Then it's pointless chasing them if we can't keep up," another pointed out. "Speak for yourself," a woman's voice said. Liam peered through the branches of a thick, prickly bush. Some of the villagers ran on. Others moved into the cave, and a handful waited outside. He raised a finger to his lips to tell the others to remain silent, then settled cross-legged on the long grass. Depending on how big the cave was, they could be in for a long wait. Liam was almost grateful for the reprieve, though he knew the longer it took for him to get medical attention, the less likely it was he'd recover from the energy weapon blast. Just when Liam thought his legs were so cramped they'd never be able to carry him, the villagers emerged from the cave, defeat apparent in their voices. They moved off after the other villagers. Liam waited a few minutes to be sure the villagers were gone, then gestured that they should go back the way they had come. It was the only place no one was likely to look for them. He tried to rise to his feet, his head spinning and vision rapidly darkening. Shortly after sunset, the group came across a small clearing far enough off the beaten path to be considered a safe place to spend the night, depending on the local wildlife, of course. Ilden, who had been carrying Liam since he'd passed out that morning, placed him on the grass near the clearing's edge. Arthian laid a slumbering Lenora next to him. It had become too much for her to walk on her injured leg, even at the almost unnatural speed her body healed, and he'd had to carry her for most of the way. Arthian stared at Liam. His friend had been in and out of consciousness for most of the day, and Arthian worried that he wouldn't survive his wounds. Perhaps if he'd been on his own world, this wouldn't be a big thing. Or if the Illinorians were around to work their magic. Surely the creator of all wouldn't allow Liam to die before the prophecy was fulfilled. But Arthian just wasn't sure anymore. The two Zephylo had wanted Arthian to teleport them to safety, but, never having used the crystals before, he wasn't willing to risk it. He could very well teleport them into solid rock or somewhere else that would kill them. It was safer to wait for Liam to wake up so he could do it. They decided against starting a fire, afraid it might attract unwelcome attention. They would just have to hope that none of the wood's wildlife was dangerous. Arthian picked small pink berries from the surrounding bushes, and Tyria took the energy weapon Liam had taken from the harvester and went in search of supper. She returned much later, empty-handed. "No luck catching anything, then," Arthian said. "More like there was nothing to catch." She dropped to the ground next to Liam and Lenora, then nodded at Liam. "He awake up again?" "No." Arthian gestured to the foliage surrounding the clearing. "None of these plants look familiar, or I might have been able to mix up something to help, at least." Tyria nibbled a berry and pulled a face. "Just our luck. These are too sour. Ilden watched her closely. Do you feel ill? Tyria stared at him in obvious shock. It seemed she hadn't considered that the berries might be poisonous. Well? Ilden asked. Tyria appeared to be thinking. After a few minutes, she said, I don't think so. Arthian heaved a sigh of relief, separated some berries from the pile for Liam and Lenora when they woke up, and grabbed a handful for himself. The two Zephylo weren't particularly talkative, and a short while later, Arthian gave up trying to make conversation and said goodnight. He curled up next to Liam, the cold air keeping him awake long into the night hours before he eventually fell asleep.